Hi! In this lecture, we will learn about adding forms to our website. So on my left, I have this brackets code editor with a simple HTML file and basic structure. And on my right, I have this Chrome window with live preview. Before I begin making forms, I must tell you that the forms as well as many other elements like tables etc. in pure HTML are very ugly and we need CSS to style them. However, in this lecture, we will only learn the basic building blocks of forms and we will not style it. Okay, in order to make forms, we use the form element. Forms can be used to submit some information to the backend servers. For that, we need to add two attributes. First one is method, which can have the value of get if we want to submit information through URL. The method can also be post. If we are submitting some sensitive information like login credentials, etc., next attribute is action. And with the help of action attribute, we define the actual file at server which will be handling our form. For example, we may submit the form to process.php. In this lecture, we will not submit the form to any server. So even if I remove these, it won't make any difference. But I will just leave these here for your reference. Next, we have the label element. The label is just pure text and cannot do much. I will write the text, enter your name, colon. Next, I will add the input element. You can see that the input element here in the browser window and you can write some gibberish here in this input. Please note that the input element is the self-closing element and there is no ending tag. There are many types of input. So I will add the attribute of type and you can see all the types of input here. I will select the text. Now this input will behave as a simple single line text box. I will also give it a name attribute and set the value to username. This name attribute is an important attribute and it is used by the server to get the values from the form. Please note that this label is for this input element, but when I click on this label, I cannot get the focus on this input element. In order to fix this, I will add the ID attribute to this input element and give it the value of name. I will also add an attribute to label known as for attribute. I will give it the same value as the value of ID of the input element, which in this case is name. Now when I click on this label, you can see that the input element gets the focus and I can start writing here. Okay, next we will learn about the email input element. Simply select these lines of code and duplicate them. Change the label to enter your email. Change the value of for to email. Change the type to email. Change the name to email. And change the ID to email as well. Now we have our input box for the email. You might be curious that why we can't simply use a simple text box for email as well. Just wait for a couple of minutes and I will answer this question when we talk about the submit button. Okay, now we have two input elements and both of them are on the same line. So in order to move this element to the next line, I will use the BR element. And we know that the BR element is the line break element and it is also self-closing element. Next, I will add the password field to my form and for this I will simply duplicate these lines of code and change the label to enter your password. Change the value of for to password. Change the type to password. Change the name to password. And change the ID to password. If I type something in the password field, you will not be able to see the actual text, and instead, you would just see these asterisks. This is how the password fields are created on the websites. Okay, next I will add the text area element. The text area element is the multi-line text box. This is typically used for comments etc. So first add label and set the for value text area and give it the label comments. Then add the text area element. You can see this handle here, and I can change the size of this text area from here. You can also set the initial size of this text area by setting columns by writing calls equal to, say, for example, 30. And the rows equal to 10. In this way, you will get a text area with 30 columns and 10 rows. You can also give it the ID and name if you need to. The last form element which we will look into is also very important, and that is the input element with type of submit. When I click on this button, this form will be submitted to the server. I can change the button text by adding the value attribute and setting the value to, say, login. Before I end this lesson, I will tell you something more about the email element. So let me enter the email, the coding girls, and press login. You can see that we get this message that this is not a valid email. So by using the email input, we are adding some basic validation to our forms. If I complete the email by adding .com@gmail.com, click on login button and our form is submitted without any error. There is another important attribute of the form elements, and that is the placeholder. So if I go to the first input element and add the placeholder here and give it the value your name, this will appear here. And as soon as I start typing in this input element, the text of the placeholder disappears. So this is a good idea to add the placeholder text for a better user experience. That's all for this lecture. Thanks for watching.